Which TV is going to be better for you? The Samsung S95B QD-OLED or the LG G2 Gallery Series OLED? So as of filming right now, the S95B is actually cheaper than the LG G2 Gallery Series, which for a lot of people will make the decision easier. But if you do need a size bigger than 65 inches, the G2 has you covered, as it is available in 77, 83, and 97 inches. Please keep in mind that prices do change, especially with Black Friday coming up. I wouldn't be surprised if these two TVs are priced almost the same. I will have a ton of content covering Black Friday and all the other TVs that are available on Black Friday, so please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to stay up to date on all of that. Also, if this video does help you make a buying decision, if you could, please consider using my affiliate links in the description below or in the pinned comment. I greatly appreciate you guys for doing that, so thank you. Alright, so let's get on to this side-by-side comparison, shall we? One thing you'll have to remember about the LG G2 is that it does not come with the stand. It is meant to be wall mounted. So in the box is going to be a wall mount bracket. So if you want to use a traditional TV stand, you're going to have to buy it through a retailer that sells the LG G2 stand, or you can buy something that sort of works like a tabletop stand that you can mount it on. For the S95B, it does come with the stand. The stand assembly, yes, it was fairly easy, but I was kind of nervous putting it on there because the glass is so thin. I felt like it was just going to snap in half, but I think for the most part, you'll be okay. These are pretty flexible TVs. One thing I have to mention about that is that some of them are bent a little bit out of the box. Now, my 65-inch was slightly bent, but my 55-inch was completely straight. As for the G2, it has no issues whatsoever with build quality. This thing is built like a tank. It has a very solid bezel and it looks really great, to be honest with you. And once you mount this thing on the wall, it looks perfect. So yeah, I think the build quality definitely has to go to the LG G2, and the looks in general go to the LG G2. Now the S95B, when it is set up on the stand, it is really nice looking. And the slim design is really cool to look at. I don't really care too much about this personally, but if this is something that you think about while it's on a TV stand, then yeah, it's a really elegant looking TV. Next, I will briefly touch on the sound quality, and then I will get into the big thing, the picture quality. So the sound quality on these two TVs, they're pretty good, to be honest with you. I think the S95B gets a huge edge here. As far as sound quality goes, it only falls behind the OLED TVs made by Sony, which are really good. The LG G2 is slightly better than the LG C2, though you do have to use the AI Sound Pro in order to get decent sound out of this TV. Otherwise, it really can sound kind of weak for TV speakers. You definitely have to get a lower end soundbar at the minimum to kind of make this TV come alive a little bit more. With the S95B, I think that you'll be fine with the sound, and you would really only improve the sound going to a mid-tier soundbar or better. So I do think you give the advantage for sound to the S95B. Next, let's talk about some of the picture quality aspects, and I'm going to start with color. The color on the S95B using the QD-OLED technology, it is spectacular, and the color volume on this TV is the best of any OLED that I have personally seen. You are definitely going to get some magnificent colors, especially out of the box. If you like bright, vivid colors, these colors are fantastic looking. They may not be the most accurate colors out of the box, but I think a lot of people will be pleased with the way that they look. It is exactly what you would expect from Samsung if they made an OLED TV. They do not disappoint in this category. You can really see a difference between the two TVs when you are getting into a bright, colorful scene. That is where you can see the difference between these two. And that's not to say the color on the LG G2 is bad. It's actually really good, especially out of the box. But it's not going to be able to match the S95B due to the capability of the panel. So you're dealing with two different technologies here. You have to remember that they are using a heatsink to get the TV to be brighter, so your whites are going to be just as bright as the S95B's whites, but the color is just not going to be on that same level. So that's talking more so on the brightness and just the overall vividness of the colors. In terms of saturated colors, there is no beating the S95B when you put it up against the G2. Those of you that care about the reference color accuracy, I think the G2 is going to be the one you want to go with. It's going to be more dialed into that than the S95B is, and also I think that the G2 is going to be easier to calibrate than the S95B is as well. So that's not to say that the S95B can't be calibrated to look good. It definitely can, and as long as you're not too picky, I think that the S95B's movie mode and filmmaker mode out of the box will satisfy most people looking for the creator's intent. But those of you that are picky and you really want to dial it in and you know what you're doing, or you can hire somebody professionally to do it, the G2 may be the choice for those people. Now let's talk about the way movies and TV shows look on these two TVs. I think that when you're looking at content like this, you're not going to see a huge difference between the two. Aside from the bright, colorful scenes, I don't think there is a huge difference between these two when watching movies, and in most cases, there's not going to be too much content that challenges and makes the S95B really stand out over the G2, but I have seen some HDR demos where the S95B does excel over the G2. So as content evolves and gets better with HDR, I think you will see the S95B pull ahead, and QD-OLED will be the technology that you want in the future. But even watching some of the newer movies that are out right now, I wasn't able to see a huge difference between the G2 and the S95B. Another aspect of the picture quality that I want to talk about is picture clarity and the way that the processing works. So the processing on the S95B can be sort of aggressive, and at times you will see a little bit more detail than the LG G2. And sometimes this will extend beyond the creator's intent, and for some people, they won't like that. The S95B seems to use some dynamic sharpening within its processing to give it more clarity than the G2 has at times, and you can see this on things like mountains and rocks. Now, that's not to say the G2 is terrible or anything like that. I just think it's a little bit more of a softer look. I think if you're looking at a 65-inch up close or a 55-inch up close, you can see these differences. This is something that I saw for myself, and I do think that the S95B's processing overall is better than the LG G2, though there are some things you have to be aware of with the processing on the S95B, where it can over sharpen or smooth out some areas where you may not want them to be. Really, if you're familiar with the way that Sony does it, Samsung does it a very similar way, so you can expect a similar processing to it, but I do think that Sony is still better than Samsung when it comes to processing at the end of the day. LG is third for me in processing, mainly because they don't do too much to change the image, and for people that are caring about creators' intent, LG is going to be the one that you go with for that reason. So something else you have to be aware of is going to be screen uniformity, which is going to affect the picture quality in the whites and the grays. Now, when you're talking about pink tint, this is something that can occur on the LG G2s, and most OLEDs that I've seen in the last couple of years had some sort of tint to it. So you want to be aware of that. But on the QD-OLEDs, I didn't see any sort of tint at all. The QD-OLEDs were some of the cleanest panels that I have seen personally to date. So if you're somebody who watches hockey or a lot of black and white films, even some of the more modern films, I've seen Thor Love and Thunder has a scene that could be affected by pink tint. Again, that's just something you want to be aware of. The 65 inches seem to be affected more so on the G2 than anything else, but this can occur at any size. I have seen it in the 55 inches myself. So just be aware of it, know that it's out there, and I do think that the QD-OLEDs are the way to go if you're concerned at all about this issue. Now, one of the best reasons to choose the S95B over the G2, in my opinion, is going to be gaming. I think that for those of you that like those bright, vivid images when gaming, and you really just want your colors to come alive and pop out, the LG G2 is not going to be satisfying you in that area when compared to the S95B. the LG G2 is still a fantastic HDR gaming TV, and if you care about picture accuracy, that's probably going to be the one you want to go with. But for me personally, I don't care about picture accuracy, especially in games. I just want my colors to come alive, and the S95B does that. The S95B makes it feel like you're playing on an LCD TV, but it's an OLED TV, so you're getting that perfect black level. It really is the best gaming TV that you can buy for the money, and the only thing that beats it in overall picture quality is going to be the A95K, but the gaming features on the S95B are going to be better than the A95K, and it is significantly cheaper as well. So overall, that's gaming. I think the S95B is the gaming TV that you would choose unless you're caring deeply about accuracy in your games. Then the G2 is really the only choice there because of HGIG working as intended. And in that last brief side-by-side that I did of these TVs, I mentioned that HGIG wasn't working on the G2, but that has since been fixed. So if you are caring about HGIG, know that that is fixed and you are fine to buy a G2 in that case. So let's talk about upscaling. The upscaling overall on the LG G2 is pretty good as long as it's 1080p and above. If it's going to be 480p or 720p, you'll notice that things like text will look a little bit blurrier than the S95B if they are side by side. So the S95B handles that 480p, 720p a little bit better. Like I said, 1080p content, they're both looking about the same. So I think it's just that 480p, 720p, how much of that do you watch? And also, if it's low bitrate, then the G2 does get the advantage. And I'm talking about extremely low bit right here is only going to be an issue on the S95B. You will see that the processing just doesn't work really great with the low bitrate content. So if you're in those rare cases where you are running into low bitrate content, then that's something you want to keep in mind. The G2 is going to do a better job in that area. When it comes to upscaling things like video games, with the Nintendo Switch, I thought that the upscaling was much better on the S95B in comparison to the G2. Most of those games are going to be either 720p or 1080p. Again, the upscaling is just cleaner on the S95B, and the G2 will look a little bit blurrier than the S95B. So, which TV should you get at the end of the day? Well, that's up to you to make that decision on. But if it were up to me and I'm helping you make the decision, I think I'm pointing you towards the S95B as long as you need 55 or 65 inches. If you need above 65 inches, of course you have to go with the G2, and that is going to be the decision. I think it's that easy, it's that cut and dry for most people. They should choose the S95B, and the only people really choosing the G2 is if you need a bigger size, or if you need something that can be dialed in to be reference accurate and you really care about that kind of thing. But overall, the S95B is the better TV. If you have any questions at all regarding these two TVs to help you make a decision even further, just leave them in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more future content just like this. If you're wondering how the G2 or the S95B does against other TVs, I have compared them to other TVs, so if you want to keep watching, please click one of these videos right here.